Yes, we're talking about not minimum wage, but Labor Day in general. May Day was the 1st of May on Saturday, and well, we're having our own discussion this morning about it. Should we say, I think it's in order to say Happy Workers' Day, because it's the reason we have a public holiday in Nigeria today, Workers' Day, and I think every worker deserves their rest. So please, if you're at home, grab a cup of coffee and find out from who we have this morning, no less than Ayuba Wabba, who is the president of the Nigeria Labour Congress. You're welcome to Sunrise Daily this morning.
Thank you. Good morning, and once again, Happy Workers' Day.
Thank you very much. I mean, I don't know why I'm particularly grateful for that greeting this morning, but I think that every worker deserves to be greeted at the minimum. And just on Saturday, well, you didn't wait for the public holiday to celebrate. All workers, at least those members of your union, were at the Eagle Square on Saturday to celebrate and to also press home their demands, their expectations for workers. You talked about the minimum wage. It is still a big bone of contention, what workers will take home at the end of the day. Why is this such an important issue for you?
Well, thank you very much. First is that the May Day is about celebrating the Nigerian worker, his resilience, his resourcefulness, the wealth that he creates, and yet few feast on it. So it's about us celebrating ourselves despite the difficulty and despite the challenges that workers are passing through. So we are not celebrating anybody, we are celebrating ourselves. And with the challenge of COVID-19, you know that we had to reduce the number to make sure that the protocol of the COVID-19 is observed. If not, I think workers will have trooped out in their millions, but we have to respect the protocol. The issue of the minimum wage, particularly in Nigeria, with this crop of political elites, have been a very thorny issue. Elsewhere around the world, workers are celebrated. Workers earn a living from creating the wealth. Just a few days ago, at the eve of the May Day, you recall, President Biden, despite the difficulty, approved the minimum wage to be reviewed from $7.25 per hour to $15. But here we are in Nigeria. Some of our political elites are saying that a worker does not deserve 30,000 naira. Some of their allowances, newspaper allowance alone, is more than 100,000 naira per month. This is the injustice. It's a class injustice. Some of them work less than 40 hours per week. Yet we have workers that put in their best. Some have even paid the supreme price, fighting COVID-19 to protect all of us. But yet, in some states, they were the first crop of people that their salary had been cut. They are sacked at will. That is why our country may not know peace, except there is social justice. And the foundation of labor globally, after the First World War, that is the Philadelphia Declaration, is that there cannot be peace without social justice. And therefore, we will try to insist that the worker is not a slave. Even artisans, even daily pay laborers, you know, you negotiate with them. You don't impose a pay on them, you negotiate. And that is the concept of the minimum wage globally. We negotiated the 30,000 naira. 6 governors were represented, representing each geopolitical zone. There was a public hearing in all the geopolitical zone. And you recall, most of them said, well, once federal government implement, we will implement. But here we are. Today, more than 1/3 of the states are not paying. Some actually implemented only for level 1 to 6. So it's not also about lack of resources. It's about whether they are committed to workers' welfare. If not, how can a state like River be discussing minimum wage up till now? So this is the real issue. And you see, even the minimum wage, those governors that are good, they are not in the same category. They are those that are extremely good. And you see them celebrating with their workers. The workers are happy. But some run away. Even when it is a global day to celebrate workers, some run away because they have nothing to tell their workers, nothing to tell their pensioners. So they run away. This is the situation we are in. And that is why we are insisting. We are going to confront the issue of the minimum wage in 2 fronts. In fact, the law provides very clearly, because the law that was signed into law in 2019, the Minimum Wage Act, provided for enforcement, including payment of arrears and also payment of interest commensurate to the prevailing interest rate in a commercial bank. Particularly section 13 of that law provided for that. We are going to enforce that. We will test the law. But secondly, is also that we are going to use the workers' power. We have already declared. Workers in those states should withdraw their services. They should withdraw. We are not slaves. They have families to take care of.
In which state?
A bag of rice today
yes.
is 30,000 naira. A bag of rice. If you have a family size, which is about 8, the husband, the wife, 4 children, and possibly your parents, is 8. That is the standard. In 1 month, you are sure that you cannot only be eating rice. You also need to pay rent. So when you look at the cost of living index, it's clearly that it's not something that can sustain a worker. Even daily pay now is 2,000 naira per day. And when you put that together, it's about 60,000 naira. But yet, in a structured economy like Nigeria, we are in a very sorry situation. So the situation continues to degenerate. In fact, this crop of politicians don't celebrate workers. You remembered the first minimum wage in 1981 by Shagari was more than $125. Today it's less than $60 because of the dwindling fortune of our economy. So this is where we are. Instead of even appreciating and celebrating workers and to pay workers, this crop of politicians, those that are not paying, certainly are not people that mean well for Nigeria and even mean well for our system.
You know, it is sad that we are, constantly on the issue of minimum wage, and even after it has been signed into law, we're still here. But a number of people will say, in fairness, that to listen to the other side of the coin, they say it's about ability to pay, whether or not the state can pay, considering the fact that at some point it would seem that there are just a lot of people taken into the civil service, and then when you look at their recurrent versus capital expenditure ratio, they're spending a lot on paying salaries, and then when you look at the fraction of those who are taking a humongous part of their budget now, they say workers account for just a small fraction of the state. Only recently we saw a statement from a state that's about to let go of workers in their own state, saying that this is the situation and that they have to be able to ensure that the resources go round to the rest of the state. How is Labour taking these arguments?
The issue of ability to pay was already considered before agreeing on 30,000. As I said to you, 6 governors were represented on the committee. There was a public hearing. In fact, some states send proposal higher than 30,000. Some send 42,000. States.
Do you think that COVID has anything to do with it?
No, it has nothing to do with it. It's just about priority. The priority of most of them is, how do I award White Elephant project and get my feedback? Workers' pay is something that you know for sure that it goes to a worker. But, in our own climb, people have heaped on the issue of ability to pay. But that issue has been addressed. Everybody agreed on the negotiation table. Initially our demand was 66,000 naira, 66,500. There was research that was carried out. National Bureau of Statistics, Central Bank of Nigeria, National Productive Center, all of them carried out a research. So there is an empirical data that was similar to what NLC did, to say that, well, with the cost of living index, what will be required now to actually even bring about the value of 18,000 naira as far back as 2011, so not even to have an increase, no, is to look at the inflation rate and try to bring the 18,000 to current realities. What was agreed was then the 30,000. It was actually a negotiated amount between the employers in the private sector and various employers in the public sector. So the issue of ability to pay has been addressed. It's just about the mindset of few, and why are some of them paying? Those with small resources, Jigawa for instance, today is one of the best governors. I can say that without missing word. He pays pensioners. The all defined benefit is funded. You retire today, you earn your gratuity, you earn your pension. At a time he said, even if there is no federation account for 6 months, I will be able to pay salary. How can that happen? Look at the revenue table and even the resources in time of RGR. When you compare Kaduna and Jigawa, which one receive money more? The same governor that is laying people said that he has generated IGR from 13 billion in 2015 to now more than 50 billion. Yet, he's talking of laying off workers. So where is the priority? I don't want us to put everybody in the same basket. We have very good governors that are actually doing well. Where they have difficulty, they will put the facts on the table and invite their workers. That's what the law said. Collective bargaining and social dialogue is central to the issue of managing labor. Those people will bring those issues, including private employers.
Some people will say, though, that Jigawa is a pretty young state. I mean, it was one of the last states to be created. And, you know, say a state like Kaduna, for instance, has been on, you know, has been there
Let me
for
tell
a
you
while.
the fact. Let me tell you the fact.
Yeah.
If you look at the workforce of Kaduna and Jigawa have more workforce. It's a reality. Look at it.
They do?
Yes. And look at the figure that he sacked in 2016. About 29,000 workers. None have been paid. So our political elites violate our laws with impunity. The law made it very explicit. Before you declare redundancy, Section 40 of the Labour Act must be respected. 1, you must inform the union or the representative of the worker the reason and scope of redundancy. That was not done. 2, that even when you are carrying out redundancy, item B on Section 20 says is last to come into the service, that will be the first to go. And the third item is that outside payment of his benefits, that there must be a redundancy package. You remember when Obasanjo carried out the public service reform? He did not only pay their, as you are collecting your sack letter or your redundancy letter, you are also collecting your check. And he added 10% as redundancy benefit. Not only that, there was a training. Because before you are given that money, in fact, there was an incubation period. Before you are issued your letter, you are trained on whatever trade you want to do. And that was actually funded by the federal government. This is in conformity with the provision of Section 20 of that law. But here we are, with impunity. Somebody has served for 30 years, with a family, with children in school. You issue him letter, I've disengaged you. Your benefit will be paid later. The ones you did earlier, you didn't pay them. You didn't pay the redundancy, you didn't respect the law. And you expect labor to keep quiet? Are we in a banana republic? That we cannot respect our laws, which is sacrosanct? A law that pertains to human beings? In another hand, you then increase school fees in all institutions with over 500%. I've read the statement of ASU. I've read the statement of the student union government. They say 70% of the students of Kaduna State University are indigenous. And they posited that these 70% are children of the poor, children of the workers, children of peasant traders, and that they will soon be out of school. In fact, I have a conversation with a woman. She fries akara in Kau. Many people know her. She has her only child in the university. She was crying to me that, this thing, I can't pay again. The fee was 26,000. I struggled to pay. Now I can't pay. My only child will be out of school. What are we trying to do? Push out the children of the poor out of school. Because their children are outside the country studying. They have the best medical facility. We have destroyed public health facilities. We have destroyed public schools. Now we have turned to those children of the poor that are in school who want to sack them. This is the issue. How do we expect labor to keep quiet on such issues? All people of conscience, all political leaders must speak truth to power so that we can have peace and stability. How do you expect there will be peace in Kaduna? That's why the insecurity issue is escalating. When the children of the poor are out of school, the rich cannot also sleep with their eyes closed. That's the reality. Hitherto, there is no kidnapping in Kaduna, I can say so.
Well, I don't know if it's any comfort, because yesterday we also had the Minister of Labour, Dr. Chris Ngige. He's represented the President a number of times now at your event. And he was on a program yesterday, a sister program yesterday, where he said that they're going to take up the issue of minimum wage more seriously. Excuse me, I don't know if we can get that track so you can listen to him firsthand. But, you know, he said that they're now going to go after those, and I don't think he was just talking about government institutions, because largely it would seem that you have focused on government institutions, and perhaps rightly so too, because I mean they ought to show the way, and a number of people argue that if they are not, you know, living up to expectations, you know, how do they expect the private entities which operate within their domain to be able to do well? But let's quickly listen to that track of Dr. Chris Ngige talking about going after people who are not, or entities are not paying the minimum wage.
Mixing apple and oranges. This minimum wage is different from a CBA, collective bargaining agreement. This is a national law that says what you pay to the lowest paid employee, worker in your establishment. State governments are employers. Private sector people, UAC, banks, and the rest of them all are private employers. All of them are in this basket. They are caught in the web of this law until repealed. So for today, any state government or employer that goes and be negotiating minimum wage, like some of them are doing with their unions, they are running foul of the law.
Well, that's what he said yesterday, but he also added the fact that they're going to go after them. Is that any comfort to you? Because some people will say 2 years and counting, shouldn't they have gone after them by now?
Yeah, by the provision of the law, the Federal Ministry of Labor can enforce it. Labor unions can enforce it. There is a clear provision, Section 13, that said that we can enforce it also through the legal process. And the employer shall pay, including interest, where he has not implemented, because it's a law. So that is another angle. But the other angle, because our people also violate even court judgments. So the other angle is why we said we are going to use the workers' power to also engage the issue now holistically, because the economic situation, the very bad economic situation, is biting very hard on workers. And many of them cannot take care of their families. Don't also forget that when we are discussing this issue of minimum wage, we must also situate it alongside what has happened just of recent. You remember states were given bailout. They collected Paris Club reform. They collected budget support. They collected 2 billion CBN support for agriculture. You remember we raised the issue of accountability, transparency. And you remember there was a report by the anti-graft agencies where clearly it stated that some states helped themselves. In fact, there was a state that the day the money came in, 500 million was removed and put into one account of just somebody that was a political appointee. This is how we have degenerated to this level. So essentially it's not about resources, it's priority, and I keep saying so, that it's about priority. And therefore we must situate all these arguments within this context. Are you saying, is any right-thinking Nigeria saying that 30,000 is too much for a Nigerian worker? How much are they earning? When the minimum wage was reviewed in 2011 to 18,000 naira, the take-home pay of political office holder, that is the legitimate one, by Revenue Mobilization and Fiscal Commission, was reviewed by over 800%. That is still the scenario we have. You even have the illegitimate ones, allowances that were created, particularly by those that are proponents of trying to now propose a bill to remove the minimum wage from the exclusive list. Those are in fact, it's their salary and allowances that is supposed to be deregulated, because it's not on the basis of their ability to pay now. Governors are earning, is it on the political office holder from councillor to the highest office in the land? They are not earning their pay on the basis of ability to pay. Yes, when it comes to worker, you now say ability to pay. And government, as you said, must lead for other employers of labor to actually follow. Because government must look at itself as a sovereign. that is representing the people. And don't forget, the primary purpose of any government, which our governors need to know, is security and welfare of the people. Welfare of workers inclusive. When you mention that workers are a tiny minority, just take even the current challenge of COVID-19. Is it not the frontline workers that are saving the world? Are we the only country in the world that have workers that are servicing the entire population? How can you say our armed forces that are being killed on a daily basis, responding to security issues, you say they are a tiny minority? How can you say our doctors, our nurses, our utility service providers are a tiny minority? That is the type of thinking. Then how many politicians do we have? And how much are they consuming? Do you know how much politicians are consuming? If you put this side by side, what the workers are even earning is legitimate. What they are consuming, the political class, for salary, is illegitimate.
Comrade, let's quickly flip this to Lagos now. I hear my colleagues have a question or two for you. Gentlemen.
Well, very quick one, Comrade. It's actually quite shocking, because if you do the math of 30,000 naira, it comes to something less than 200 naira an hour, and about 1,500 naira or less for an 8-hour a day. So the questions you raised about the one state government that's been laying off workers, question one we want to ask is that what then is Labour planning to do? Is there a protest in mind? Is there some picketing, in the works?
Yes, thank you very much. If you could recall, our highest organ, the National Executive Council of the Nigerian Labour Congress, composing of all president and general secretaries of our 49 affiliate unions, composing of all our state councils, our civil society allies, we have decided that there will be a 5-day withdrawal of services, total withdrawal of services in Kaduna State. That date will be pronounced by the NAC, and where there is no reversal of this policy, because it's akin to modern day slavery, where a worker is disengaged as a slave, even after working for 30 years. The second addendum to that is that after the first 5 days, if there is no remorse, because one, the governor belongs to a party, two, he also have colleagues, three, we have also institutions in place that where some of those decisions will affect the security and life of people, he ought to have been called to order. And where nothing has happened, after those first steps, we are going to do a total withdrawal of services, because we believe that injury to one is injury to all. And as we said, he is not alone in this battle. He is only championing a cause. You remembered the report of the so-called restructuring, which he championed and claimed that it was a document of his party. Many of them have disclaimed that document to say it's the idea of one person, and that they have a perspective that actually reflects what needed to be done. So basically, I think these are the steps that Labour will be taking, because we'll deploy the workers' power to make sure that the workers in Kaduna are also protected and our laws respected, because one is about respecting the provisions of our law. If a governor that have sworn and to uphold the provision of the constitution of our country will impunity violate the provision of Section 20 of the Labour Act, then I don't think you expect workers to do less. So this is how far we have programmed our engagement on this very important issue.
Well, we definitely will keep up with, what goes on with Labour, and not just Kaduna State now, but all the other states, because we also know that a number of states are owing their essential workers' salaries. We've heard some of them owing doctors' salaries, owing lecturers' salaries. I don't know what Labour is going to do in those states, and how many more states you're going to issue an order for. Do you have an idea, quickly?
Yes, as I said, there have been some sectorial challenges. And those sectoral challenges have also led to the withdrawal of services. You recall just of recent, the doctors withdrew their services. All the unions in academic institutions withdrew their services. And as we speak, JUSUN, the Judicial Staff Union, are on strike. The Parliamentary Staff Union are on strike. This is not the type of situation that we should continue to just lament. I thought we should be able to look at how to address it holistically.
Yeah, I was actually hoping to
get more. This have led to a lot of disruption, which is also affecting Nigerians. Nigerians now that want to access justice because of inaction of also the governors, the courts have been shut. And basically, these are straightforward issues. It's a constitutional issue.
Well, Comrade, I was actually hoping that you shed more light on which other states you intend to take action on. But sadly, we're out of time now. I believe that maybe I'll get that information from you after now. We'll be looking to see what eventually happens with Labour and state governors. We're hoping that the state governors will not wait until they are harassed, until they do what they ought to do by their workers in the state. But we have to say thank you for always honoring our invitation to the studio. Comrade Ayuba Wabba is the president of the Nigeria Labour Congress. Sunrise Daily will continue in a bit. Please stay with us.